In the middle of an epic battle in a forest clearing, battle-maid Grace drops out of the sky with a battle axe to blast Monster Hide into shockwaves, right as Kirishima Kagehisa spawns in a glowing golden magic circle next to a mob of adventurers to announce his grand protagonist debut. Smash cut to the actual reality of his situation. Drowning in the pitch-black ocean depths, sinking aimlessly, gasping for air as his life flashes before his eyes, descending into the dark abyss. With blank eyes, suspended in a bright white circular void, he remembers his real life as a sweatlord gamer hooked on Break Force Online, lying in his bedroom until an IRL thief unexpectedly stabbed his torso. Floating through a gray void of empty dark space, two glowing circles appear, followed by a blinding flash and urgent screaming. Boom. He wakes up hyperventilating on the floor, on a paved path outside a stone town, with an anxious Grace hovering over him, while she desperately clasps her hands together. Still mentally lagging, he blinks at the high fantasy skyline, wondering if this is a VR event, plunging into internal existential dread before coming to the horrific realization that he has been reincarnated into the younger body of a noble runt named Theodore Gartner with stubby little legs. After reassuring Grace he isn't brain damaged, he realizes this ultra-loyal maid is his only viable party member in a toxic household. But as they march toward the Gartner estate, his abusive half-brother with a bowl-cut hairstyle insultingly confronts them, trash-talking his lineage alongside another smug sibling. Recalling how his own mother died of a disease, Theodore endures their arrogant chatter, while Grace gives them a cold glare. The side-part sibling mocks his weak stats, prompting the bowl-cut psycho to step up, while Grace bravely shields him. Bowl-cut throws a violent downward punch, but Theodore steps in front and instacasts a wind spell, Air Wall, that launches the bully backward. Left hyperventilating on the floor, the bowl-cut brother freaks out over the chantless magic while staring at Theodore in pure terror. Theodore notes his body responds with zero latency, like his old avatar, as the defeated bully snarls in frustration. Coldly flexing his superior logic, Theodore points an authoritative finger and tells the fleeing loser he's done playing nice, before leaving him to glare in defeat. Walking away without looking back, Theodore ignores Grace's worried look and resolves to treat this new world like the ultimate survival game. Cut to the grounds of the Gartner estate, where Theodore is soaking in the isekai vibes under an expansive sky. He clenches his fist, feeling the fabric of his uniform, and looks out at the rugged countryside before declaring he's quitting this toxic household for good. Grace's eyes go wide with surprise, but Theodore just gives her a confident, I'm OP smile as birds flutter around them. He eyes the distant Gartner town through a wooden doorframe and asks Grace if she's down to be free. She pledges her unwavering devotion, saying she'll follow him anywhere because of her loyalty to his late mother. Later, Theodore is chilling in a chair, feeling pensive on a sofa, and Grace starts apologizing for failing to protect him and thanks him for the forgiveness. Theodore just tells her that his father actually agreed to let her leave, right as he has these dark, edgy flashes of family abuse that make him never want to see them again. He just wants a quiet life. So they hop into a horse-drawn carriage and hire the Forest Bird Mercenary Squad for protection. Inside the carriage, Theodore gives her the I trust you line, and Grace beams with a huge, cheerful smile. She takes charge of the trip to Tamwills, but Theodore is already annoyed and tells her to stop calling him young master. Grace keeps pace with the horses, and when Theodore asks why she wants to go to Tamwills, she just says it's funny. Then she gets serious, explaining that Tamwills is the place for high-level magic. Theodore mutters about hating his family and asks why she's following him into a dangerous zone. She places a hand over her heart, vowing absolute loyalty and begging to stay by his side. Theodore's thinking ahead to Tamwills, a massive urban labyrinth that apparently reshapes itself during the full moon. He realizes it's the same labyrinth from the BFO game, envisioning himself fighting shadowy monsters on a stone platform. Back in reality, he's wearing combat armor and is absolutely floored when Grace reveals she carries a massive ornate battle axe as a replica. He notices the ring on her finger. Remembering it seals her insane Dampier strength. He realizes he's the only one with the admin permissions to release that seal, though he's still not sure what his own power limits are. Inside the rocking carriage, Grace humbly admits she's a magic casual, staring in awe as Theodore's floating spell circle radiates high-tier energy. She asks if high-level magic circles are tough to cast, but Theodore shrugs it off, explaining his BFO muscle memory auto-completes the spellcasting. He shifts in his seat, and bam! A sudden collision violently flips the carriage, slamming everyone into the walls. Grace panics, while Theodore bursts through the splintered doorway to find the transport wrecked on the dusty road, and the horse rearing in terror. Landing firmly on his boots, Theodore instantly channels his mana to cast the Class 4 spell Live Detection on the dirt road. The hired cloak girl stands mouth agape at his absurdly high-level UI spell as Theodore's magical radar scans the surrounding terrain. His vision reveals an incoming horde of insectoid monsters mixed with predatory wolves and killer ants charging their location. He barks out the mob composition to the forest bird party, confirming wolves are in the aggro trace as the hooded girl gasps and Meat Shield 1 in plate armor panics to retreat. Seeing the swarm closing in, Theodore decides to unseal his maid's broken stats as Grace gives him the green light. Theodore grabs her in a clutch embrace, shouts, "Cancel seal!" and unleashes a massive, luminous shockwave just as the 1,000-strong mob slams into the road. Holding the line with the party, Grace pauses for a split second before launching into the sky like a missile and cratering the horde's center with her axes. Theodore watches in awe as Grace grips her catalyst. Amidst the rising dust cloud, he screams, "Hell comes!" unleashing a violent upward magic detonation that vaporizes the mob. Stabilized by a glowing magic seal, she fires a secondary shockwave that cracks the carapaces of the remaining killer ants and sends debris flying everywhere. Theodore jumps into the DPS rotation, shouting, "Tusk of Earth!" to impale goblins on jagged stone spikes. Grace surveys the total carnage over a road littered with dead mobs as a fresh wave snarls. Standing her ground, Grace fires off a screen-clearing AoE shockwave that launches the front line skyward. Meat Shield number 1 slices an ant while the freckled scout spots a flank attack and warns Monica, who instantly pierces an insectoid with her spear. Theodore analyzes their martial arts mechanics, noting that this world enforces strict skill tree requirements. As the smoke clears over a massive crater, Theodore checks Grace's abrasions and stands over the defeated battlefield, declaring the fight finished to a slumped adventurer. Grace thanks him, and when Theodore takes her hand, she blushes furiously and turns away. He turns toward her, asking if she's unhurt, and she stammers that she's fine, relieving him. He turns to the party to order a camp setup, brushing off the freckled scout's impatient complaints with a firm command to rest. As the party gathers, Theodore looks out, accepting this brutal reality isn't just a VR MMO. While Grace strikes a cinematic pose atop a cliff with her axe held high, as the real adventure begins. Deep in the forest wilds of Shirn, Theodore broods over a hooded girl on the tree line, his mind replaying her solo trek while mentally complaining about Grace abandoning his party. He grumbles about her ring seal buff wearing off in high-level mob territory, right before hooded girl face plants hard into the dirt, gasping in full panic mode under her hood. Theodore picks up her dropped cloak in total confusion, only to smash cut to the river where a blonde chick screams. Alongside 2 other naked bathers, Theodore freezes in shock, watching the blonde cover up before dropping into a 90-degree grovel on the soft grass next to a horse carriage to apologize for the accidental creep behavior. Whip pan to Shirn Castle's massive stone gate as our party rolls up alongside a freckled loot mule holding massive sacks for guild exchange, while Theodore decides to shop for staff upgrades with maid-uniformed Grace in tow. Walking down the cobblestone streets under noisy rooftops, Grace stares blankly as Theodore screams a frantic apology about the Morning River incident, which Grace hand-waves before making him realize he's being dramatic, since they used to take baths together as naked pixelated kids anyway. Cut to the town square, where the local NPC guard captain throws a massive rage fit over their quest turn-in, screaming that nobody could wipe out that monster swarm, while two visored edgelords smirk and explain this tyrant captain is just salty over losing his reward cash. The mad captain escorts the edgelords away, barking orders, leaving Theodore standing there recalculating this city's terrible corruption stats. Inside the packed Adventurers Guild lobby, the scene shifts to a quiet VIP room with a steaming teacup, where the narrator introduces Beline, the local guild receptionist, who immediately drops to her knees in an apologetic bow. She formally begs forgiveness from Theodore and Grace for the guard captain's toxic behavior, to which Theodore nonchalantly accepts while envisioning a conceptual image of the town's utterly lazy, useless security team. Sip of tea in hand, Theodore hits her with some sharp logic, asking why a glorified security guard is sticking his nose into autonomous guild business. Beline morphs into a deadpan chibi form holding a beer mug to explain that adventurers are hated here, and the guards only excel at sitting around taverns, leading Theodore to chibi nod along as he realizes the guards are just desperately trying to cover up their own failed quest logs. Beline frowns, revealing that the corrupt guard captain threatened Theodore just to protect his own skin, and offers extra bonus cash on top of the ant-slaying reward to buy their silence. Suddenly, a guy with dark hair and glasses enters the room, bowing politely to apologize for interrupting their meeting. He whispers a secret message to Beline, while Theodore watches curiously, causing her formal demeanor to instantly break into a mischievous grin. She winks and delivers the quest prompt. Baroness Ashley Lodius Shirn wants an audience with Theodore. Theodore gives her an absolute deadpan stone face, openly refusing the noble summons because he hates corrupt middle management and knows she hired the worthless guard captain. Beline clasps her hands and begs to tag along, since the gatekeepers always block her from seeing the Baroness. So Theodore nods, accepting her pitch that it's best to meet the local ruler at least once. Cue the high-class setting as ornate white heels clink against the castle's polished tiles, where Theodore, Grace, and Beline stand in a formal line as the young ruler turns around. Lady Ashley greets them with a gentle smile, introducing herself as the local feudal leader. Theodore looks slightly surprised before maintaining his cool, offering a polite nod and introducing himself as Theodore Gartner. Ashley takes her seat, humbly apologizing for her guard captain's atrocious power trip and thanking them for clearing the monsters. Sitting on the opposite couch, Theodore accepts the apology, but immediately drops some unsolicited political advice, telling her she needs to fix her broken relationship with the guild. Ashley tilts her head in total confusion, admitting she had no idea there was even a rift in the first place. Beline leans forward, asking what her inner circle has been feeding her, while Theodore points out that Beline has been repeatedly turned away at her front door. Beline modestly waves it off, but Ashley's expression darkens as the horrific realization sets in. Looking down with an ashamed sigh, Ashley confesses that her deceased family, along with her head butler, Kennel, and the guard captain, always brainwashed her into believing adventurers were filthy thugs. Beline asks if they can grill this Kennel guy right now, but Ashley reveals her head butler is conveniently away on business in the neighboring town. An awkward, heavy silence fills the air before turning into a light-hearted pause, prompting Beline to eagerly raise a finger and offer a full presentation on how the guild actually functions. Ashley's eyes light up like a starry-eyed kid, hyped for the explanation, though Theodore ruins the cute vibe by bluntly stating both factions just want to exploit each other for profit, making Beline sweat, while Ashley enthusiastically agrees anyway. Beline pops out to gather documents and prepare Theodore's bounty pay, shutting the heavy wooden door behind her. Grace steps up to serve tea to the noble, introducing herself, and Ashley gives her a warm, welcoming smile. Grace closes her eyes with serene maid devotion, visibly relieved that the Baroness isn't holding a grudge over previous events. Theodore tells Ashley to relax, and she marvels at how weirdly mature and independent he is for his age, which he attributes to his hyper-optimized survival lifestyle. Scanning her with his battle mage eyes, Theodore analyzes her pale complexion and points out her obviously terrible health bar. Ashley blushes, sheepishly insisting she's fine, even though her internal monologue flashes back to a dark void of chronic frailty. Theodore decides it's time for some direct intervention, kneeling before her and grabbing her hand with a calm instruction to stay still. He channels his internal mana, explaining that his battle mage build lets him manipulate energy flow via circulation tempering, as glowing spirals of magic visualize around her arm, detailing how it acts like a high-tier status-buffing self-augmentation skill. He focuses the energy directly into her system to clear her debuffs, sending crystalline sparks of light through her skin. Theodore stands back up, and Ashley gasps as her body suddenly feels weightless, asking if that was actual magic, before Theodore clarifies it's just advanced energy adjustment. He adds that she actually possesses top-tier magic talent, shocking the young noble, as he advises her to study magic to control her own dense mana pools. Beline bursts back in with a tray of refreshments, apologizing for the wait, bringing everyone back together in the center of the hall as the meeting resumes under vastly upgraded, cozy vibes. Wrapping up their meeting, Grace clicks her heels against the polished floor and leads the way into the castle hallway, with Theodore right behind her, as she asks if Ashley's sickly nature reminded him of his late loved one, Lisa, prompting a somber sigh from our hero before they head toward a commotion. Out in the reception corridor, the missing head butler, Kennel Dono, is throwing a massive, screaming temper tantrum at a guild staff member, raging that Ashley shouldn't be in such a dirty place. Theodore steps right up to the angry old man's back, causing Kennel to spin around with extreme anime speed lines and yell at him for interrupting. After an annoyed sigh, Kennel calms down enough to stand stiffly, allowing Theodore to calmly introduce himself, Grace, and Beline as the ones behind today's chaos. Theodore moves the party into a private office, requesting a civil sit-down regarding Ashley's situation, where he delivers a massive lore dump while Beline listens intently. Exhausted by the truth, Kennel slumps into his chair, cursing the corrupt guard captain before casting a suspicious glance at Beline. Theodore uses his analytical negotiation skills to vouch for Beline's methodical nature, while asking about the town's past trauma with adventurers, to which Beline gives a knowing smirk about a prior incident. That leaves Kennel staring into space with heavy concern. Theodore pulls zero punches, sternly warning them that monsters won't wait for administrative paperwork, and that their garbage security forces will cause massive civilian casualties if they don't act fast. Kennel sighs, revealing Ashley's tragic background as a frail child whose estate duties had to be outsourced, lamenting that everything went downhill after Elliot Sama vanished. Theodore tilts his head, asking who Elliot is, triggering a flashback visualization of an empty bed and a tragic shipwreck. As Kennel explains, Elliot was Ashley's older brother who vanished at sea 8 years ago during a family tragedy. Theodore rubs his chin, feeling genuine pity for the isolated young girl. Suddenly, the doors slam open, and Ashley comes sprinting down the hall in her frilly dress, yelling for her grandpa. Kennel's face turns into a comedic shock meme at the sight of his sickly lady running, screaming in total panic before she slides to a stop right in front of him. She tackles the old butler in a tight hug, exclaiming how amazing her body feels thanks to Theodore's magic, leaving Kennel wide-eyed and dumbfounded. Theodore modestly warns that the buff is only temporary, but Kennel practically bows to the floor, overflowing with gratitude for seeing his lady healthy for once. Right then, a reddish-brown-haired lady shouts out a cheerful greeting to Theodore. Moving to the main castle hall, Monica asks if they're moving out, but a short-haired girl explains their gear maintenance got delayed by killer ant damage. Monica double-checks the ant damage, and the girl confirms the Smiths won't finish until tomorrow, meaning they need lodging. Red-haired lady impulsively offers her house for a sleepover, while Grace hits her with a deadpan glare. And when Theodore awkwardly tries to decline the free real estate, Kennel gets a giant floating question mark over his head. Theodore quietly explains that Ashley's emotional trauma stems from losing her entire family 8 years ago, leaving Ashley looking down in quiet, subdued sadness. Kennel rests his chin on his hand, touched by Theodore's empathy. As he notes her tragic past naturally makes anyone want to protect her, Kennel officially backs the sleepover invite. And despite Grace reminding them of their early departure, he insists they stay. Beline then nervously approaches Theodore, right as Ashley musters her courage and asks Theodore to officially be her friend. Theodore blinks in absolute shock, falling into a dramatic internal monologue before dropping a rare, genuine smile and accepting her request. They lock hands in a wholesome handshake, relieving the young noble, while Beline approaches a grumpy Kennel who complains about her ruining his wholesome moment. Walking down the hall, Beline lays out a brilliant bureaucratic fix, pointing out that Kennel's double duty as butler and administrator caused the guard oversight, leaning in to pitch a deal. While Kennel looks utterly drained by her relentless political maneuvering, Beline presents her proposal, while Ashley and Grace watch quietly from the side. Beline pitches it as a win for Ashley's future, finally forcing Kennel to give a defeated nod of agreement, as he promises to discuss the administrative shift with Ashley. Beline gives a teasing wink, promising to handle the behind-the-scenes scheming, leaving Kennel to let out a massive, soul-crushing sigh. Grace tries to steer the party back to finding a standard inn, but Kennel insists the entire party stay at the estate, prompting Beline to hype up the party and Theodore to ask what secret deal she just struck. Beline gives a smug, mysterious smile, leaving Theodore utterly confused, as she hums a song, boasting that while she schemes from the shadows, her alignment is strictly non-evil. Departing through the heavy courtyard gates, Beline hums a carefree tune, claiming her backdoor schemes are strictly chaotic good. Standing among his guildmates, Theodore reflects on securing his first official friend in this bizarre fantasy world as the squad gathers before the massive iron gates. High above, Ashley gazes down from a stone window frame, watching them go with deep longing. Cut to the party riding out in a horse-drawn wagon, wheels clattering on the dirt path through a brutal mountain pass, flanked by sheer cliffs, with Ashley's voice echoing a hopeful farewell in Theodore's head. Suddenly, a flashbang-level eruption of white light detonates across the road. The rocky cliffs get swallowed in a blinding, hyper-glowing fog. As the horizon clears, the entire adventurer party starts losing their minds in awe. Beline rushes to the plateau edge, pointing frantically into the valley below for Theo and Grace to look. Theodore and Grace step up side by side, their stoic gamer faces completely shattered by the render distance, with Grace admitting the view is breathtaking. Nestled in a colossal crater below sits a gargantuan ring-walled megacity, centered around a massive spire that pierces the sky, the legendary labyrinth city of Termules. Starting their journey in the colossal crater of Termules Our squad looks up at the needle-like spires of Boundary City, piercing the bright sky. Below, a high-angle view reveals massive defensive gates integrated into towering stone walls, where a steady stream of figures marches in. At the checkpoint, some random ponytail guy on horseback presents his credentials to a spear-wielding guard, while a light-haired girl peeks around a stone wall, her mouth parting in utter wonder at this gatekeeper-restricted grandeur. Passing through the gates, Theodore Gartner, wearing his classic stoic gamer face, freaks out under his collar about the vibrant streets, shouting that it's exciting as he looks at the gothic skyline of spires. He spots a local furry wolfman gesturing wildly in the market and realizes these aren't NPCs or avatars. They are actual living people, which makes the blonde girl beam with pure wonder. Later, along a paved European-style street next to a horse-drawn carriage, Theodore drops a massive sack of gold into Monica's hands with a smooth pay-to-win flex, keeping his military uniform composed while explaining he's buying future favors. Theodore explains he'll contact their forest bird guild if needed. Their reddish-brown-haired companion smiles warmly next to a poised Grace, while the brown-haired woman talks about staying in the city, prompting Grace to fold her hands and pray they don't get obliterated in the deeper floors of the labyrinth. The wavy-haired woman with a cape asks their next move, and Theodore explains they must deliver letters to someone named Rozetta. Monica waves a cheerful goodbye, telling them to be careful. Theodore waves back, and the carriage clatters away toward the spires. Soon, Theodore and Grace arrive at a grand two-story European mansion. Theodore stands resolute at the entryway and slams the heavy door knocker, which is answered by Rozetta, a poised woman in an elegant dress, whom Theodore asks if this is Rosetta's mansion. She immediately recognizes them as Theodore, son of Henry, and Grace. A bewildered Theodore asks if they've met before, trying to search his memories, while having a rapid flashback of three cloaked figures walking through a wasteland. Rozetta mentions she heard about Grace through Lisa's letters, making Grace's eyes widen in absolute shock. Realizing this woman is a high-tier trusted contact of his mother, Theodore hands over his father's letter. Rozetta verifies the Count's ink script and invites them inside to her fancy living room. Theodore immediately asks what the letter says, and Rozetta explains it's a request to help him live in the city and enroll in Pursford Academy. But instead of accepting a cozy free ride, Theodore demands to find his own house because he refuses to remain under his family's protection and wants to solo level as much as possible. Rozetta looks mildly concerned, while Theodore maintains his deadpan face and closes his eyes in deep gamer reflection. Surprisingly, she yields to his wish, which utterly perplexes Theodore as he tilts his head. With Grace standing right behind him, Rozetta points out that even if she refused, he'd just run off to do it anyway. Theodore's eyes sharpen with the intensity of a hardcore speedrunner, vowing to figure it out himself. Rozetta smiles at his stubborn gaze, and as Theodore hesitates, she admits she'd rather guide him than let him run wild. Theodore nods firmly in agreement. Rozetta closes her eyes, sighing that she couldn't face Lisa if he died, prompting Theodore to realize she knew his mother. She chuckles, explaining she went to school with his parents and even dungeoned with Lisa in the labyrinth. This bombshell info makes Grace break into a cold sweat of pure shock. Rozetta offers them her couch for the night, but Grace just narrows her eyes in deep, silent suspicion. As Rozetta sits back, completely composed, Theodore watches her serene, mysterious smile, wondering what kind of high-level player she really is. Bright and early, inside a real estate office, Theo and Grace stand before a brick wall plastered with property listings. The agent, Kyson Mortis, pitches options, while Theo internally narrates their search for an operational base camp. Whip pan to the paved streets until they pull up to a 2-story stone house with a pointed roof. The contract gets signed, and it's instant speedrun cleaning time. Grace dusts furniture while Theo suffers under a massive carpet roll. Next stop, the menacing Gothic facade of Pursford Academy. Theo narrates finishing his paperwork inside at a counter marked with official signage. The receptionist Haza gives a welcoming smile, beaming cheerfully, though she gives the intro letter a hilarious look of mild skepticism as Theo registers with the Adventurers Guild. She hands back the official paperwork, Theo signs off, and Haza presents a floating magic stone ID. She points across the hall, warning that entering the Great Labyrinth requires mandatory tutorial training, promising alchemist info afterward. The duo drop quick thanks and walk off. Navigating the massive open guild hall. Out on the street, a bob-cut woman watches a squad of sketchy mercenaries centered around a bald, scarred meathead who throws her a sideways glance before his crew marches off, leaving the woman sharing solemn looks with her party. Theo and Grace head straight to Beatrix the Alchemist's shop, handing over the guild letter to order a self-defense minion. Beatrix casually reviews the request for a high-quality Shadow Mercury. Theo slices his arm to drip blood into a flask, and when Beatrix demands 1,500 Keelig cash, he coughs up the gold as Beatrix flashes 3 fingers for a 3-day crafting timer. Back on the street under the spires, Theo calls it a day, smiling to Grace that tomorrow they raid the labyrinth with Rozetta, so it's time to rest. Grace agrees as a carriage clatters past, but Theo's spider sense tingles as he spots the same scarred thugs lurking in the shadows, casting a dark vibe over the Gothic towers. Later that evening, Theodore stands by his new home's window, peeking out as the sun sets over the city. The next morning reveals quiet rooftops under a soft sky as Theodore gears up in his stone-walled room before he and Grace return to the guild, passing under its wing emblem sign. Waiting at the counter is Rozetta, wearing her trademark enigmatic smile next to Haza. Theodore approaches with a polite nod and announces his departure to the labyrinth, prompting Haza to ask for his metal registration plate. He flashes his ID, earning an amused look from Rozetta, who offers a gentle warning to be careful. Not one to walk blindly into a dungeon, Theodore immediately stops at a commercial stall to buy a detailed labyrinth chart. Rozetta notices his map purchase, and Theodore explains he wants to prep properly since she's tagging along. Curious about his new companion's day job, Theodore asks what she does for work. Rozetta reveals she teaches at Pursford Academy, specifically running the healing magic classes. Theodore reacts with a knowing, "So that's how it is," prompting a puzzled look from Rozetta. He breaks down the game-like logic. Healing depends heavily on magical power compatibility, and since high-tier healers are incredibly rare, the Academy definitely lets her set her own flexible schedule. Soon, the trio arrives at the grand Gothic-style Boundary Labyrinth Gate Shrine. They ascend the massive stone staircase, entering a hall dominated by a towering, ethereal statue of the deity. Theodore leads them past massive columns and up a stone spiral staircase, casually asking which god is worshipped here. Rozetta explains it is Shuas, the moon goddess, who protects travelers. She drifts into a blissful, reverent state, while Grace looks utterly confused, and Theodore remains entirely deadpan. Reaching the transport room, Theodore presses a button on a rectangular transport stone, watching it hum with magic. He touches the monolith, explaining it can warp players to any floor they've previously visited. He sighs, wishing his past BFO gamer memory counted toward unlocking fast travel, but sadly realizes he has to start from level 1, looking small against the massive architecture. Suddenly, the mood darkens as the bald, scar-faced head PKer and his goons enter the room. Theodore watches their threatening silhouettes pass by as the bald leader smirks, sparking the stone with magic. As the monolith glows, Rozetta whispers a warning about the sketchy crew, hoping it is just her own paranoia. Theodore touches his chin, his veteran gamer instincts screaming as he recalls the dreaded beginner hunts from his BFO days. He knows all too well that low-level floors in any MMO are absolute breeding grounds for toxic PKers. A worried Rozetta suggests turning back, but Theodore shakes his head, knowing that once you're marked as prey, running away does nothing to escape the aggro. Grace's eyes narrow as she prepares to protect her master, and Theodore's face turns ice cold as he delivers the ultimate gamer response. If they block their path, they will simply have to delete them from the server. Transitioning into the damp, claustrophobic stone corridors of the lower levels, Theodore summoned a small floating orb of magical light that hummed quietly in the darkness. Guided by this glowing illumination, our wavy red-haired big sister took the lead, while Theodore and Grace followed close behind. Theodore casually declared their speedrun goals, saying, "All right then, let's go. I think we should be able to go until the 5th floor today," as they ventured deeper into the underground complex. The lower depths were completely deserted, filled only by the ominous whistling of wind echoing through the dark tunnels. Grace crouched low in the foreground, glancing back at her companions to gauge their resolve before murmuring, "But still, we'll look at how we fare." Suddenly breaking the silence, Grace leaped into the air and slammed her massive weapon down with pulverizing force, shattering the stone floor and sending a pack of lurking goblin-like creatures reeling from the explosive impact. With the trash mobs cleared, the trio walked side by side once more, their footsteps ringing against the damp walls. Big Sister mused thoughtfully at their efficiency as their figures shrank into the distance of the dimly lit hallway. Pausing in a particularly dark stretch, she turned to the youth and asked, "You were suspicious of that group from before, right from the start, right?" When Theodore deadpanned a simple yes, prompting her to admit her previous doubts about his map purchase and ask if his extreme caution was the real reason for his preparedness. Theodore looked back over his shoulder with a calm, analytical gaze and explained, "That's also one of the reasons." He pulled out the parchment map, gesturing for her to take a look. His finger traced the lines of stone corridors, pointing directly to 2 specific intersections. And the other reason is this. There are some places where those guys from before might lay an ambush for us, like here and here, he warned, focusing on a specific 3rd floor choke point. The main one will be on the 3rd floor. If we keep going in the same direction, after the stairs and the stone monument, there is a long hallway where it meets perpendicularly with another hallway. He detailed. Big Sister leaned in, her eyes narrowing as she instantly recognized the toxic map design, analyzing, "This is the most suspicious place. They can shoot us from afar with arrows. They might also put some men on standby in the small rooms just before and after this long hallway, thus preventing us from running away while allowing them to attack us from both sides." She looked at Theodore with newfound intrigue, wondering aloud what kind of hardcore veteran could have taught a kid such advanced survival strats. She puffed out her cheeks in a playful pout, huffing, "And here I thought of showing my cool side by saving you when you're in trouble, and then continue by giving you some advice like a real guardian. But now it seems that we'll meet some robber adventurers. And on top of it, both of you are really smart. There are just so many things that don't go along with my plan." Which made Grace ask if she was actually being serious right now. Meanwhile, Theodore's mind drifted back to his past life as Kagehisa in the brutal world of BFO, where such anti-griefer tactics were basic muscle memory. Prompting him further, Big Sister asked, "So then, what are you planning to do about that ambushing party?" Theodore pointed to the parchment map again, proposing, "Let's see, this will be a long detour, but if we take this route here, we might be able to flank their archers." He explained that the robbers naturally expected them to take the shortest route because they looked like fresh newcomers. "We can predict their movement to some extent by acting as if we are just beginners. And that's exactly why I did that," he said, with a cold, calculating look. His eyes grew stone cold as he finalized the strategy. If we find archers in that place, then there's almost 100% chance of them laying an ambush, and so we'll attack them without any warning. Big Sister rested her hand on her cheek, remarking, "For some reason, I feel sorry for them now." However, she clenched her fist as her guild authority kicked in, declaring, "After all, I'm in a position where I'll be scolded if I turn a blind eye on adventurers who work as robbers. This is not about seeing your ability anymore, so I'll join the battle. My weapons are my healing magic and hand-to-hand combat." Throwing them a reassuring smile, she added, "And also I can use the dark side of healing magic, so you don't need to worry." "That's it then, let's move on," she cheered, waving them forward, while Grace trailed behind, pale as a ghost, silently thinking, the dark side of healing magic, huh? That's gory. Whip pan to a yawning dark maw, where a distant pinprick of light guides the team down the detour route. Theodore slides his hand along the cold stone and peers around the corner, spotting cloaked mob mages featuring a skull staff leader. Clocking them as human night vision batteries for the snipers, he leaps into the open with the girls right behind him, yelling, "Blow away!" as a magical circle flares on his palm. He thrusts the light at the cowering mobs and fires an airburst shockwave that obliterates their positioning. A bandaged griefer flies through the air, clutching his chest and skidding through the dust, while the trio stands over the debris like hitmen. "Why come from behind?" the griefer shrieks, howling down the hall. "Hey, what was that sound?" before panic sets in. "It's that boy!" the PK leader roars. "Damn it, kill them!" while a lantern-wielding mage chants, "Flame absorb," making Theodore's spellcasting flicker. A bald robber tries to rush in, but a massive axe blade fills his field of vision. His eyes widen in absolute terror, right before Grace delivers a bone-shattering midsection strike, forcing out a wet gasp as he gets cratered into the stone wall while she looks on coldly. Meanwhile, Redhead calmly watches a runner and barely touches his shoulder, sending him screaming in pure agony. She predator tackles him, hauls him up by his collar, and transforms into a pitch-black shadow crackling with electric dark aura. Whispering, "Rotten blood," she boils the leader's internal organs until he vomits blood and hits the silent floor, standing over his barely twitching body as the dark energy dissipates. Another caster hurls a burn-down fireball, but Theodore's eyes glow like circuit boards. Too slow. His electro-lance electrocutes the leader, slamming him into the wall with sparks dancing on his skin. "Damn it! What the hell is going on here?" The fried leader screams, whipping out a dark artifact that ignites a huge magic circle while he brags about killing them all. Summoning gate? Theodore realizes, explaining to a confused Grace that it forces an unholy entity into reality. Redhead asks what's popping out, right as the leader laughs and the portal erupts into smoke, spawning a hairy, muscular torso. Redhead's smile turns dangerously sharp as she realizes these aren't basic low-level griefers. Boom! The smoke clears inside the dim hallway as an illegal boss monster drops in, prompting Redhead to scream, "A manticore?" as the beast leaps forward with claws bared and its creepy humanoid face snarling for blood. The PK leader cackles like a villain who just pulled an S-rank card, shouting, "Kill them! Kill those guys!" right before the manticore's scorpion tail stabs him through the spine mid-sentence. The party freezes in pure, hilarious confusion while the ganker wheezes. "Why? It hurts." And the manticore chuckles, noting that they're both stuck cleaning up low-tier trash today. "This monster," Theodore mutters, while Redhead steps up to buy time, but the beast lunges, forcing Theodore to execute a frame-perfect dodge while erupting jagged ice spikes. Skidding back to open up spacing, he commands Ice Wall to erect a frozen barricade down the hall as the beast glares over the ridge and Grace screams out his name. "I'll start by eating you." The monster growls. I don't like this, Theodore thinks, calculating the field instantly. He realizes the dead griefers were just scrub proxies who couldn't control their own summon, and shifts his combat posture, instantly deducing a shadow mastermind set up this whole encounter to wipe everyone out. Explosive speed engaged, Theodore lunges forward, locking eyes on the arrogant beast and thrusting his spear straight into the manticore's smug human face. The beast's head snaps back in utter disbelief as Theodore lands gracefully, staff ready. Eat me? Huh? Just try it if you think you can, he mocks, provoking the enraged monster to roar. You! What a rude boy you are! Right in the middle of a dungeon structural collapse, a violent blast pulverizes the stone corridor into flying dust as the swordswoman spins around toward the commotion, while Grace grips her battle axe in absolute terror, crying out for Theodore to be safe. Staring down the corridor as magical energy hums in the air, Theodore pulls off a ridiculous aerial jump toward a winged demon casting a glowing magic circle. The beast glares right back through its spell grid, but Theodore sprints across the tiles, dodging erupting walls of ice like a player abusing iframes, while the swordswoman tracks the airborne raid boss through the frozen hazards. Baring its tusks, the monster realizes its target actually has maxed out caster stats, prompting Theodore to casually call out its frost spell. Water magic. Ice wall. Spotting the boss trying to aggro lock Grace away from the party, Theodore coolly announces, "This is fine," casting a high-level magic circle under his boots to keep his party out of the splash zone, while sliding under the danger like a true speedrunner. Another massive spell detonation shatters the surrounding masonry into a blinding dust cloud. But even as the winged demon snarls through the haze, Theodore completes his strategic slide across the stone tiles. Standing tall and composed amidst the ruined hallway, he vows to ruin the mastermind's entire campaign and locks eyes with his opponent in dead silence. Locked in a high-stakes duel across the shattered floor, the demonic boss boasts, "You little brat, you have nowhere to run now," before roaring, "That arrogance of yours, I'll smash it to pieces." But Theodore instantly counters by spiking the ground with his own frost spell, yelling Icicle Lance. Poised cleanly amidst the flying ice and rubble, he stares at his humming staff and drops a ruthless, "Too weak," immediately upcasting a second barrage of Icicle Lance. The demon's jaw drops in absolute horror as razor-sharp ice spears puncture its torso and pin it to the stone walls, leaving the bleeding creature to stammer, "What?" Levitation glitch unlocked, Theodore floats mid-air above the wreckage and taunts, "What are you so surprised about?" Right before they clash mid-flight in a high-speed collision of magic that rocks the whole corridor. As masonry comes crashing down, Theodore helpfully points out the embarrassment of losing to your own elemental spell type, adding with a villainous smirk, "You know what that means, right?" The triggered monster screams, "Damn you!" only to end up battered on the tiles, while Theodore cold stares him down. The demon sputters in pathetic disbelief about losing to a kid, so Theodore delivers a brutal, crushing blow to smash him backward, and narrows his eyes to charge his next skill. "Blown away!" he shouts, blasting the monster with compressed wind DPS, before stepping forward to announce, "This is it." An intricate magic circle flares underneath his boots, and when the screeching demon lunges in a desperate panic, Theodore hits him with explosive sound bombs before detonating the trapped zone with a cold whisper of resonance mines, triggering a screen-wiping nuclear explosion. Standing amidst the lingering smoke of pulverized stone, the heavily degraded boss stubbornly drags itself up, snarling, "You damn lowly human!" And out of mana Theodore pants. That's some pretty impressive willpower to stay alive. But this is the end, only for a sudden shockwave knockback to blast him off his feet, while Grace shrieks his name in terror. Out of nowhere, Axe Waifu swoops in to steal the kill, bringing her massive battle axe down in a brutal arc right into the beast's skull, with a gory spray of blood that makes the creature shriek in agony. Holding her weapon with terrifying resolve, Grace lunges forward, shouting, "I've come to your aid!" and cleaves straight through the mob, shattering the floor tiles underneath. The monster lets out one last miserable gasp, leaving Grace to glance at the corpse and deadpan, "Oh my, this creature is more or less already dead, isn't it?" As the boss lies totally motionless, our braided party member steps up and casts a radiant purification sphere to cleanse the dark aura, instantly disintegrating the creature into black particles. Looking over the absolute carnage of the hallway, the braided woman admits the whole battle feels like an absurd joke, before finishing with a totally flat face. This is really something. Within the newly quieted, shadow-draped corridor of the labyrinth, Grace immediately rushes over to Theodore, dropping to her knees and bowing dramatically while crying out his name. Standing back up, she clasps her hands together in profound relief. As her magic ring glows softly on her finger, Theo, being the smooth protagonist he is, reaches out and interlocks his fingers with hers, looking into her eyes with a gentle, reassuring smile as he murmurs, "Sorry for making you worry." This immediately makes her blush redder than a health potion as she smiles and replies, "It's all right, as long as you're safe, Theodore-sama." Just as a peaceful calm returns to the thick stone corridor, Cloaked Sword Maid notices something weird on the floor and calls out, "Theodore-kun, look at this." Both Theodore and Grace turn their attention to where she is pointing, at several dark, jagged fragments levitating in midair, prompting Theodore to ask, "Black summoning stone?" Examining the black stones, Theo realizes his extensive knowledge from his past life playing this game is totally useless here, since he's never seen these items, while Cloaked Sword Maiden admits she hasn't either. Looking over at the bound, unconscious cultists on the floor, she notes that these guys are way more suspicious than they originally thought. Theodore pockets the strange loot and instructs, "I'll keep the black summoning stones safe, so can you call someone here? I'll look over these guys too." To which she agrees, gazing down the long, shadow-filled corridor as his allies stand behind him. Our metagaming hero privately muses that this entire questline is far from over. Smash cut to the government building's administrative hub, where Theodore is speed-running paperwork under a bird emblem entrance sign. Bureaucrat NPC Heather scribbles furiously at her desk, processing his documents so he can finally close out the administrative ordeal before identifying his captured cultists as the notorious Snakebite Party. She sighs about these annoying aggro magnets, prompting Theo's quick nod, before she promises a fat cash reward post-investigation, and sends him off with standard quest turn-in courtesy. Stepping into the tiled corridor, Theo syncs up with Grace and Rozetta, their footsteps echoing on cool stone as they head for the door. Rozetta asks about his next objective, and Theo votes for an immediate, peaceful home warp. Grace offers a fast travel carriage ride, but Rozetta acts pensive and chooses to walk alone, tossing out a parting smile and standing by as a future support NPC while the duo watches her fade down the street beneath the castle spire as day turns to night. Dawn breaks on their rented room, with Grace sleeping peacefully, right until Theo wakes up pinned to the floor blankets in an ironclad death grip. He panics instantly over their makeshift bed setup from returning the landlord's furniture, getting his face crushed while trying not to trigger a volatile wake-up aggro. Listening to morning birds, the situation sparks a micro-flashback to his childhood days, sleeping safely next to Grace after her hunting trips. Her eyes flutter open with a gentle greeting, and Theo plays it off stiffly, sitting up to prioritize a bed-buying quest, because this proximity debuff is insanely embarrassing. Sunlight catches Grace by the window as she offers to cook breakfast, which Theo helps with, before planning their next stop at the guild hall. Flanked by Monica and a serious brown-haired guy, Lucian waves frantically. Theodore greets the Forest Bird party, while Lucian gushes about finally meeting up after hearing about yesterday's ambush. Monica steps up, genuinely freaked out about Theo being targeted. Theodore thanks her, playing it off like a champ. A freckled party member laughs, pointing out that Theo didn't just survive, he turned the ambush into an instant counter-ambush. Lucian chuckles, confirming that Theo's high IQ counterplay has already become viral guild gossip. Stepping inside the guild hall, a shoulder-length brown-haired guy apologizes for stopping them before taking off as Monica tells them to stay safe. Right on cue, Heather calls out to Theo. Theodore asks what's up, and she apologizes before revealing a mysterious VIP quest giver arrived to meet him in the guild's private back room. Grace's eyes narrow as she demands to know who this mystery guest actually is. Escorted down the tiled hallway, the receptionist reveals the VIP is Lady Ashley. Theo's inner radar blares in confusion as he double-checks the name. The staff member guides them past wooden doors, promising to process his snakebite reward money during the meeting. A soft voice bids them enter from within. Inside the relaxed guest room, Ashley jumps up with max enthusiasm, enthusiastically greeting Theo before beaming at Grace. Theodore gives a polite greeting, while Grace instantly checks Ashley's health status. Ashley reports her sick days have drastically dropped since her last treatment, and mentions she just arrived in town. Theodore asks if the long-distance travel drained her stamina bar, but Ashley reveals she flexed her noble budget by taking the guild's high-tier dragon carriage. Theodore mentally calculates the absurd gold sink involved, immediately blaming guild manager Beline for pushing the VIP transport option. Asking why she pulled up so suddenly, Ashley drops a major plot bomb. She's moving here to study abroad in terminals. She adds that while direct DMs are tricky, she can route messages through the guild system. Theodore realizes she's permanently joining the local server. Ashley then shifts into quest giver mode. Asking Theo for an official adventurer commission, she maintains composure as she asks if he'll take the job. Theodore stands there with a literal question mark floating over his head. He double-checks if she's asking for continuous circulation tempering treatment. Ashley gives a firm confirmation. Theodore accepts, suggesting they discuss the contract details later. But then his meta-knowledge kicks in and his expression turns dead serious. In this world's social lore, an unengaged noble guy and girl meeting privately on a regular basis carries a massive implicit flag. There's literally only one way society interprets this interaction: a straight-up marriage proposal. Blushing furiously, he curses Beline's off-screen matchmaking schemes, baffled that a high-tier noble girl holds a bastard child like him in such high regard. Pivoting the topic, Ashley asks Grace for more high-level embroidery crafting tutorials. Grace politely accepts, adding she can only do it in her downtime, to which Ashley excitedly agrees. Theodore internally freaks out over the sheer amount of romantic flag intrigue piling up around his character. Grace notices his panicked expression and asks what's bothering him. Ashley grows momentarily pensive, while Theodore keeps his composure, sensing her slight anxiety. Theodore wraps up the meeting, promising to fill Grace in once they return home. He notes that with their new situation, tomorrow's schedule is going to be packed, bracing his mental resolve for the chaotic plot ahead. Once they retreat to a private room, Theodore sits down, breaking down Beline's master plan. Grace nods, acknowledging everyone has their own hidden agenda. But as a prerequisite, Grace suddenly stands up, looming over the seated protagonist with total narrative dominance. Standing tall in the quiet room, Grace initiates a deep lore dump, plunging Theo into a vision of her dark origin story. As a half-human, half-vampire Dampier who lost her parents, she had fled into the dark forest to isolate herself. Terrified that her bloodlust would force her to treat humans like consumable health potions, Theodore analyzes her past, noting that in the dark age before anti-vampiric magic tools existed, her hunger mechanics must have been a nightmare to balance. Back in reality, Grace softly admits that Theo probably forgot this core memory. In the vision, a young Grace crouches in the bushes, while Theo's mother Lisa stands nearby holding baby Theo. It was little Theo who spotted her hidden icon first and hit her with an unprompted, warm smile. That tiny act of compassion saved her soul, bringing emotional tears to her eyes. Theodore watches his own backstory play out with a bewildered expression. Grace holds up her enchanted ring, a key item gifted by Lisa that permanently suppressed her bloodlust buff and gave her a home. Returning to the present, she steps closer, asking if he realizes how much it meant that he never feared her terrifying true form. Sitting back down, she confesses a wild game mechanic anomaly. Even though her hunger bar is totally full, she's currently experiencing a heavy vampiric urge. Internally, she wrestles with her own deep-seated insecurity, feeling fragile and exposed. Theodore stays silent as Grace breaks down in tears, weeping uncontrollably out of pure fear that he'll reject her and pull away. Placing a hand on her chest, she hits him with the ultimate insecure romance route question. Is he really okay being paired up with a cursed creature like her? Theodore doesn't even hesitate. Standing tall, he calmly reassures her that her Dampier status isn't an issue at all. Cranking his charm stat to maximum, he blushes red, but firmly declares that if her vampiric urge comes from her romantic feelings, he'll gladly volunteer as her target. Grace freezes in absolute shock, her face turning bright red as she stammers that she'll only bring him trouble. Theodore just smiles, countering that it's fine as long as it's her, since he'll inevitably cause her trouble too. Flustered beyond belief, Grace stammers out a weak denial. Theodore gently takes her hand, asking if she's worried about Beline's marriage push. Grace smiles serenely, admitting that if it's Ashley, she actually supports the ship because she wants her to be happy. Laying back down on the floor to relax, she confirms her feelings. She hints that Ashley shares those exact same romantic feelings for Theo, flashing a subtle, knowing smirk. Catching herself, she sits up and refuses to spoil Ashley's own character arc, leaving Theo red-faced and awkwardly staring at the floor. Grace watches his adorable panic with narrow, amused eyes, softening the atmosphere into a radiant, magical glow. She asks if she can call him by his childhood nickname, at least for right now. Theodore accepts with a gentle smile. Overwhelmed with pure joy, Grace closes her eyes, whispering her thanks as the camera pans outside over the bright city skyline to catch her intimate final whisper. Theo. We pick up right under the morning sun on the main street of Turmules, where Theodore kicks off the cohabitation era by asking, "Shall we go buy the furniture first?" Grace seals this romantic business contract with an absurdly formal handshake before beaming. Of course, cut to our newlyweds speed-running the domestic meta, hitting the local furniture showroom, testing out giant beds draped in pink linens, and checking their reflections in fancy gilded mirrors. Theodore reflects on how surreal it is that his entire life flipped in 24 hours, musing, "And so just like this," as Grace proudly displays a dinner plate for their maiden meal. They settle into Theo's pad for hearthside dining, while he narrates, "Our new life in Turmiles has started." As night falls, the fan service quota hits hard in the steam-filled bathroom, where Grace calls out, "Theodore-sama, this way," over the white noise of the showerhead. Kneeling behind him on the tiled floor, her hands scrub his back, letting Theo sink into total bliss, while thinking, "Yep, it feels just perfect." Turns out, Grace's physical skinship stat is wildly higher than he calculated, basically turning her mental avatar into a hyper-beaming chibi version of pure happiness. Mid-wash, she shifts to Academy talk. That reminds me, Theodore-sama will start attending the academy tomorrow, right? Theo nods through the steam, asking, "Yep, livelihood magic lecture was it again?" Grace transitions into an expert shoulder massage and requests, "I wish to accompany you. Would that be all right?" To which Theo readily agrees, but then she presses her bare body flush against his back, making him instantly freeze up and panic. "But Grace, you're not an attendee, so you will have to be in the waiting room." Does Grace care about lobby restrictions? Not at all. Proudly revealing her side quest with a bright, "I'll do embroidery." The next morning, our duo arrives at the looming European-style monolith of Pursford Academy. Background student mobs are lounging by the sunlit central fountain, while the stone hallways inside are a bustling maze of uniform-wearing NPCs. Cue best girl Ashley, who greets them with a glowing "Good morning, Theodore-sama," prompting Theo to explain his late start due to livelihood magic enrollment. Inside the tiered lecture hall, the academic vibe gets instantly ruined by a loud, arrogant scrub shouting, "I came here when they told me that it's an important magic lecture, but livelihood magic?" Theo quietly takes a seat while this guy, Tarkot, rants about trash-tier magic, while his sidekicks panic about his dad's direct orders. Tarkot stands in the center, scowling like an entitled villain archetype, giving Theo time to analyze him as the violent, talent-carried son of the Duke Cardiff clan. Still, Theo takes a breath, enjoying the lively academy energy compared to his solitary past grind. As class lets out, Theo walks with Ashley and admits, "This amount of people in of itself is something new to me." He asks about her healing magic class, and Ashley clutches her book, beaming. It's all thanks to Theodore-sama, because his cheat notes earned her top praise from the instructor. Theo's brain short-circuits internally as he realizes Ashley is a secret top-tier unit with terrifying natural talent. Heading back to the hall, Theo ponders if he can hack livelihood spells into his chantless build. The neatly parted hair professor takes the stage and lectures on how pure will shapes magic. "So then, I'll teach you a chant for simple livelihood magic," the professor announces, handing out chant sheets while telling beginners to focus inward before moving the class to the outdoor plaza for fire practice. Ashley effortlessly pops a cute flame above her palm, and Theo steps up with a chill, "I'll try it too." By plugging the spell into his internal magic equations, he instantly spawns a perfectly stable flame. It's a huge revelation for him. Manual magic hacking back in BFO was a chore, making academy methods ridiculously convenient. When Ashley asks if he really never learned basic domestic spells before, he deadpans, yes. He stands with his eyes closed, chuckling at how his past life was spent purely min-maxing offensive firepower spells. Seeing her skeptical look, Theo flusteredly waves his hands, making excuses about having zero spare time for home spells, but his peaceful reflection is shattered by a sharp yell. "Hey, you there!" Tarkot marches up, aggressively pointing past Theo to harass Ashley. Theo's face immediately sours into total irritation. Ashley whispers Theodore-sama for backup before standing tall and elegant. "I am indeed Ashley Lodius Shirn. What business do you have with me?" Theo guards her side as Tarkot barks, "My father should have sent a marriage proposal to your house a long time ago. What has become of that?" Theo internally facepalms. That fool. Is he really going to ask that here? Cue a quick flashback vision. Tarkot lost control of his magic a year ago, blasted his own fiancée, got dumped, created a massive scandal, and forced his broke dad to spam proposals to every unengaged noblewoman in the realm. Back in the courtyard, Ashley politely asks, "Excuse me, but which family are you from?" To which Tarkot scowls. "I'm Tarkot from Duke Cardiff's house. You don't know me?" Ashley hits him with immaculate PR. "I see. I do know about Duke Cardiff, but this is the first time I have heard about a marriage proposal." Before smoothly adding, "So your letter must have not reached me." Maintaining her polite smile, she promises, Since it concerns both houses, please let me get some confirmation from the main house. From there, I'll send my answer to Duke Cardiff's house. Theo watches this and thinks, well, if it's Kennel, then he must have sent an answer already. I'm sure it's just that they didn't tell Tarkot. Tarkot's jaw tightens into a furious scowl, while Theo stands his ground. Aggressive boy points at Theo and shouts, I heard that the Lady of Shirn has no fiancé. So who the hell are you? Theo casually introduces himself. I'm Theodore Gartner, Ashley Sama's friend, while sighing internally. It seems that this guy wants to say that I'm responsible for Ashley's bad response. Two background girls gossip about the Gartner name, but Theo shuts it down with a blunt neither before the professor interrupts. Is there a problem? The prof steps in to restore order, giving Theo a chance to walk away. As the crowd splits, Theo remarks, That was rough, wasn't it, Ashley Sama? To which she gently smiles, Not at all. I am all right. How about you, Theodore Sama? Out on the open plaza, Theodore checks on Ashley right before the professor commands everyone to group up and learn from each other. As student pairs start practicing basic magic control under the sky, a random bro hypes Theodore's smooth spell work. While the professor explains chant mechanics, Tarkot throws a temper tantrum at struggling peers nearby, drawing glances from Theodore and the prof as he whines about useless magic. Theodore reads his UI logic. The guy just wants to flex, to skip class. Right as a massive mana surge makes the professor pale, wind swirls violently, while Theodore frowns at the idiot, smirking like a villain, before casting a full AoE. Firestorm! Tarkot roars at the crowd, terrifying panicked students as he drops a glowing magic circle to buff the flames. Theodore casually strolls into the vortex, hits Flame Absorb, and deletes the entire inferno into zero as Tarkot glitches out. The spell evaporates completely, leaving Theodore standing beside a stunned Ashley. Seething, Tarkot stomps over, demanding to know what that was. Theodore deadpans anti-fire magic and asks why he's so stupid. Tarkot screams back,
for getting in his way, but Theodore's gaze turns lethal as he warns him to watch his tongue. Recognizing his Cardiff's Wild Dog title, Theodore calls out his terrible magic control, while Tarkot spits back. Theodore mocks his elitist attitude toward commoners. Tarkot boasts about his power, confirming he's an unhinged privilege boss. Theodore decides a quick power diff beating is necessary. Tarkot proposes a bet.
So Theodore officially challenges him to a duel. Without chanting, Theodore flexes a glowing high-tier magic circle above his palm, causing the professor to suffer a brain aneurysm, while Tarkot sweats profusely. Theodore sets two PvP rules. KO or surrender equals loss. Tarkot growls acceptance. Maid Grace rushes over worried, but Theodore reassures her while she takes crowd control duty and Ashley offers healing backup. Theodore steps into the ring as Tarkot draws his wand. The duel kicks off. Theodore executes a low tactical slide like his old BFO PvP days, while Tarkot screams about him not pulling a wand. Tarkot smirks bitterly and fires an air ring barrage. Explosions rip up the stone floor while Theodore dodges effortlessly, analyzing Tarkot as a telegraphed magic slave. Tarkot thrusts his wand, shouting, "Air bullet!" But Theodore's bullet time perception tracks it. He low sprints and slides past the blast zone, stabilizing his stance. Theodore looks back over his shoulder at a gaped-mouthed Tarkot with an unbothered expression. He leaps high into the air, gliding smoothly as Tarkot screams in disbelief again. Floating calmly, Theodore gathers mana and calls out Tarkot's telegraphed eyes as the next spell misses. Tarkot launches a crystal spike, but Theodore drifts back mid-air to dodge. Forming a hand seal, Theodore dual casts. Air bullet, cracker bomb. Tarkot cries out in terror as the double spell blast sends him flying. A blur moves through the smoke. Theodore blitzes behind Tarkot, locking him in a headlock. Tarkot gasps for air. Theodore whispers, "Go to sleep," and slams his face into the pavement for an instant KO. Theo gives a polite, "Oh, thank you." The guy pulls down his hood to reveal reddish-brown hair and neck goggles. "I'm sorry. That was rude of me. My name is Alfred." Theo starts, "I'm Theo?" before his eyes widen in realization. Wait, isn't he Alfred Breitoveld? Theo watches him with hidden intensity, recognizing him as Prince Albert using his engineer alias. Theo notes his cheerful posture and recalls BFO lore about his engagement to childhood friend Ovilia and his weak palace standing driving him to make guild contacts. Deciding Alfred is a safe friend to lock in, Theo extends a hand. "I'm Theodore Gartner." Alfred grins and shakes it. "Nice to meet you." Over on the rough grass of the plaza, Tarkot sits slumped in complete shock. Theo stands tall over him, looking completely unbothered, without a single drop of sweat. Tarkot has an existential meltdown, unable to wrap his head around losing to a literal kid. Theo breaks the silence. "I'll ask you this just in case, but do you plan to fulfill your part of the bargain?" Tarkot snaps defensively. "You're stronger than me. That's all there is to it, right?" Before crossing his arms and resigning. "I, who have lost, have no plan to say anything against you who have won." Theo accepts the win. "Then please do just that." Then Theo drops some truth. "For me, I never think that livelihood magic, lessons about being a noble, classroom lectures, and magic training are useless." Tarkot looks up shocked. "Is that so?" As they walk across the plaza together, Theo offers guidance. "By learning many different things, you'll be able to do just as much." Tarkot asks, "Does that include learning livelihood magic, despite having skills such as yours?" Theo explains his min-maxed logic. "It's to lessen my work when doing trivial things while in the labyrinth, since I go to the labyrinth from time to time when I want to get stronger." Under the grand spires of the academy, Tarkot mutters a contemplative, "I see," reflecting deeply on the gap in their worldviews. Meanwhile, a dark vision flickers to prisoners bound in dungeon chains as a hooded snake cult woman thinks. Moreover, that snake bite was caught alive and is being held in the guild right now, realizing she needs to react. Returning to her hidden ritual room, she sighs at the stone ceiling. But maybe I don't need to give up after all, since it seems they're not executing any mop-up operations. Standing in the quiet chamber, she bows her head with a weary sigh, then narrows her eyes into a malicious smirk. "Ugh, what a pain," she grumbles inside a floor magic circle. Disdainfully looking around, she spits, "Those humans, that barrier too, everything. That Termules is really a big pain in the ass." An extreme close-up captures her intense gaze. Well, compared to being together with those scum, this is somewhat better though. As the camera pans over the Termili skyline under a massive full moon, she takes a purposeful step in high heels, uttering, "Recognize me. I'll show them what I can do with this, and I'll make them." Right after the high-stakes duel at the academy, the intense action gives way to a heavy, bureaucratic quiet as Theodore Gartner stands within a shimmering conceptual vision, replaying the chaotic aftermath, recalling his opponent Tarkot getting escorted off to the principal's office by a guy in a dark uniform. Theodore gets shuffled into a designated waiting room where background NPC students sit on draped chairs engaging in ambient chatter. Pushing aside the boredom, our protagonist turns to his noble companion beside him. "Is it really all right for you to stay here with us, Ashley-sama?" he asks with a furrowed brow, gesturing vaguely toward the exit while adding, "You have lectures too, right?" Ashley keeps her cool with an unflappable composure, reassuring him, "I already received permission, so it's all right." Leaning in close to emphasize her personal stake in this mess, she adds, "Moreover, it's actually a problem between him and me." Theodore slumps his shoulders in a rare display of contrition, muttering, "I'm sorry for going too far," and begins to say, "So do before Ashley cuts him off to propose a quick mana refill session. Well, since we have free time on our hands now, shall we finish the circulation tempering? Theodore agrees immediately, gently taking her hand to kickstart the magical ritual in the quiet room. How do you feel? He asks softly, to which Ashley closes her eyes with a peaceful look and whispers, I feel warm, as if dipping in a bath. Treatment complete, she chills by the large window, watching the wind rustle the trees, while Theodore wanders out into the long, tiled hallway to debrief with a young coat-wearing guy. Shifting back to a sunlit area to rejoin Ashley, the noble girl hits him with a bright, curious smile. I want to hear the story of when you dove into the labyrinth. Theodore looks off to the side, fondly remembering his subterranean grinding. The story about the labyrinth, huh? Well, let's see, he starts, gesturing as he explains their low-level exploration constraints. Although we went to the 12th floor, it's still relatively shallow, so it's not like we had any big adventures. He adds a crucial bit of lore. Moreover, we didn't meet any guardians either. Ashley tilts her head in total confusion and echoes, Guardians? Theodore stands up to break down the dungeon hierarchy like a seasoned raid leader while the atmosphere darkens. It's not like they belong in any particular floor, but they can loiter somewhere below the 20th, he explains, as a dark visual of a colossal shadowy monster with glowing eyes looming over nights pops into his mind. It might be easier to think of them as the boss of monsters, he adds, closing his eyes pensively as he warns, that's why if we went just a bit deeper, we would be in trouble. He spends a moment animatedly breaking down boss mechanics for Ashley and another hallway companion before their gaming talk is derailed by a playful faculty member. Oh my, murmurs Rozetta-sensei as her footsteps come to a halt. Rozetta-sensei? Theodore recognizes, explaining Ashley is just a witness before cutting straight to the point. Rozetta-san, you came here to talk about Tarkot, right? The teacher confirms it, dropping a massive plot update with a solemn face. First of all, although this came from himself, I heard that he will lose his right of inheritance from Duke Cardiff, and he has been disowned. Theodore executes a fast logical analysis, concluding, I expected him to be placed under a house arrest at the least, and imprisonment at the worst. But since he is disowned by the Duke, it seems that it's impossible for him to get away from expulsion. He flashes a knowing smile, adding, well, he made such a huge scene after all. But Rozetta throws a plot twist. But it's decided that he will stay in the academy. Theodore tilts his head, asking, did they forgive him? Rozetta explains the political metagame. There are two people who are interested in this bet that both of you made, noting these heavy hitters want to nurture potential, though Tarkot gets insta-banned if he throws another tantrum. Theodore gives a smug, confident grin, musing, well, he's indeed a talented person when it comes to magic after all. Realizing it's actually a massive buff for Tarkot to be severed from his toxic dad, Rozetta smiles warmly, teasing, and here I wondered who was the guy who defeated such a promising battle mage candidate so soundly. Theodore calculates the political chess moves, thinking that way it would let them reduce Duke Morris's influence, knowing Tarkot can keep studying if he behaves. Turning her back as her long braid catches the light, Rozetta drops the real tea, or so they said, revealing the principal and a secret upper echelon shadow figure rigged the outcome. Expressing a faint hope, she sighs, and then, if only he would start thinking for himself, before smirking with her chin on her hand to see if Theodore caught the bait. Oh, you understand it well, don't you? She purrs, prompting Theodore to realize the catch. And so Tarkot will be left under his care, huh? Turning back to Ashley, Theodore breaks down the practical homeless situation. Well, since he's been disowned, He doesn't have anywhere to sleep while attending the academy after all. Connecting the dots internally, he thinks, I'm pretty sure that must be Prince Albert. Realizing the 4D chess prince just acquired a debt slave while tying Theodore to the deal, Rozetta breaks his train of thought with wild news. Tarkot said that he wants to thank you. Seeing his bewildered face, she chuckles. It's thanks to you that he was saved by the skin of his teeth. Theodore blinks in sheer confusion before a wooden desk, asking, Is that so? Internally, his selfish gamer mindset rejects the praise. To be honest, I only think of myself, so I have no right to be thanked. Before a mischievous smirk breaks out. I'll think of it as Albert's debt to me. Rozetta laughs softly at his villainous logic, crossing her arms as she mutters. There he goes, thinking of something evil again. Before pivoting back to the plot, putting that aside, about Ashley-sama's current condition. Well, about that, while Ashley stands at attention ready for her medical report. Shifting locations over to the administration office for a quick medical lore drop, Rozetta-sensei takes a deep breath to explain Ashley's debuff. The sickness that Ashley-sama contracted is one that is commonly seen in people with high magical energy, she notes, while Ashley stands centered with clasped hands, looking dead serious. Rozetta adds that fevers are just high mana side effects, incurable by normal pot spells, requiring manual body training. Theodore instantly offers his services across the desk. I see then. Should I continue treating her with my circulation tempering? Rozetta touches her cheek thoughtfully, admitting his custom technique is absurdly effective. In that case, I will continue treating Ashley-sama, Theodore confirms calmly, while Ashley beams and adds, I think that will be okay, since you guys don't have that many chances to meet each other. Rozetta leans back pensively, confessing she tried to learn circulation tempering herself, but failed due to trash compatibility stats. Actually, I was thinking of learning that circulation tempering, and even researched about it too. But resting her head in her hand, she adds, there's not that much literature about it. Also, since I know I'm not compatible, I gave up on that idea. Looking at Ashley in awe, that's why I was surprised to know that you can use it. Ashley remains composed before asking Theodore, also, it will be great if you can stay here for a little bit longer. Then asking the room, is there anything else? Rosetta's face instantly clouds with comedic distress as a giant sweat drop forms. Well, it's not like it has something to do with you guys, but it's just that I don't like meeting that person. Right on cue, a hysterical scream echoes outside. Please, my lord, you can't do that. And Rozetta fruitlessly insists it has nothing to do with that person. He was only there at the time. While Ashley spectates the chaos. Suddenly, the doors slam open as Morris Cardiff barges in, bellowing, What are you talking about? It's only natural for me to show my face when my foolish son causes so much trouble. The confrontation migrates into the grand library hall, where high ceilings and towering bookshelves amplify the trash duke's overwhelming presence. Theodore keeps a neutral distance as the boomer duke flashes a thin, condescending smirk. Taking heavy steps across the tiles, Morris points an assertive finger. So you're the one, huh? Who stopped Tarkot? Rozetta tries to draw aggro away, pleading, Lord Cardiff, he is... But Morris cuts her off with an arrogant laugh. What is it with you? He shouts dismissively, leaning forward. I'm just here to say my thanks, so get out of my way, will you? Rozetta narrows her eyes, asserting, That's why I will listen. But Theodore steps up directly, stating, It seems that you have some business with me. While Grace keeps watch from a window, Morris puffs his chest into a formal, noble flex. I'm Morris Cardiff. I am the head of House Cardiff. Theodore stands his ground, responding coolly. I am Theodore Gartner. Morris maintains a fake, smug smile, remarking, I heard that you took good care of Tarkot. I'm glad that not one of you is injured. Theodore throws him a bored, skeptical look, internally rolling his eyes. Good grief, this person is really transparent. He dryly explains that their strict duel rules prevented casualties. Morris purrs with fake praise. I see. That's really commendable. Before taking a predatory step forward that casts a dark shadow over Theodore. But I can't come to remember it. I heard that Duke Gartner has only 2 legitimate children. Which one are you? Theodore doesn't flinch, stating plainly, I am neither. Morris dramatically recoils in over-the-top shock, pointing a huge condescending hand. So you're a bastard son, aren't you? He mockingly claims he only came to give respect, assuming Theodore was legitimate royalty, narrowing his eyes calculatingly. Theodore sees right through the bait. This person, he knew my background from the start, didn't he? Does this guy think that I feel inferior since I know that I'm a bastard son? Morris leans right into his face, dripping pure poison. She wasn't of noble birth, was she? Rozetta screams, Duke Morris, in outrage, and Grace's rage spikes as she yells, How dare you say that about Lisa-sama? Morris just throws his hands up, boastfully laughing. I remember it was 8 years ago. It was all thanks to me since I was here that she was saved. Since even in my own territory, there were hundreds of lowly people dying on the roadside like dogs. Theodore's pupils constrict into a sharp, murderous glare. Lowly people dying like dogs. As Morris keeps blabbering with a puffed-out chest, Theodore's hand trembles into a tight fist, a dark, ominous aura bursting out as he locks onto his target. I will kill him. Suddenly, Ashley shatters the bloodlust by spreading her arms in a massive emotional shout. What exactly? Theodore gapes in surprise as Ashley rages at the Duke. Do you know about her? Her eyes brimming with furious tears, she screams, Despite knowing nothing? How dare you say that about Lisa-sama, and about us too? It was thanks to her that so many people survived. Her face flushed with grief. Her fist tightens as she cries out, And that's not all. She also took revenge for my father and mother. How dare you insult her name? You should know some shame. Theodore's killing intent instantly vanishes as the realization hits him. I see. Looking at Grace, watching quietly, Theodore connects the lore dots. So she knows about her, huh? That's why Grace took a liking to her. Morris tries to flex his authority on the girl, sneering, Little girl, do you understand who you are saying that to? But Ashley snaps right back into his face. Right back at you. Do you really understand what you are saying? She pulls out her ultimate title card flex. As the head of the house of Duke Shirn, I can't ignore that disrespectful comment toward the savior of my house and my parents. Morris's smug face completely shatters for a second before he masks his panic with a fake smirk. The house of Duke Shirn, you say, he mutters, quickly backing away toward the grand double doors. Theodore and Rozetta watch the trash Duke retreat as he stammers. All in all, I'm just glad that no one was hurt, since I'm still rather upset due to the recent mishap. As such, I will excuse myself, walking away while frantically gritting his teeth in silent, humiliating rage. Speeding down the long academy corridor as his heavy footsteps echo off the tiles, Duke Morris Cardiff fumes over how Theodore basically assassinated his public prestige in front of the head of House Shirn. In the inner edgy void of his mind, the masked eye patch boomer lets his dark aura swirl as he vows revenge. But I do understand one thing. I understand it well. You are clearly my enemy. Outstretching a hand like a sore loser villain, he sinisterly grins and swears. Without fail, I will definitely make you pay for what you said. Meanwhile, back inside the quiet sanctuary of the Grand Library Hall, Ashley breaks down in tears in her frilly dress, covering her face and crying. I'm really sorry, Theodore-sama. Theodore instantly de-escalates the tension with a relaxed posture, reassuring her. There's nothing for Ashley-sama to be sorry for. Turning to his loyal bodyguard Grace, he gently grabs her hand and stares at her power limiter ring, realizing she was seconds away from unclasping it and nuking the Duke. Grace, your hand, he murmurs softly, while Grace bows her head in deep regret, apologizing. My deepest apologies. I was standing prominently in the library foreground. Theodore gives her a warm smile, stating, It's fine. I understand. While Grace gazes down at her restrained ring, expressing her raw relief, Grace admits, if the one who sprung into action back then was not Ashley, who is the most distant person from Mother in this room, there's no mistaking that we would have gone and done it. She finally realizes that someone outside their family actually venerates Lisa's heroic sacrifice, adding, I understand well now that there's someone outside of her family that thinks so highly of her, of what Mother did and what she accomplished by putting her very own life at stake. Overwhelmed with wholesome emotion, Grace covers her face and cries again, wondering, I wonder if it's because she was a quiet girl like Ashley. She bows deeply to the noble heroine, saying with genuine affection, Thank you very much, Ashley-sama. Grace flashes a tearful, blushing smile, while Ashley gives a melancholic, I'm sorry, before Grace pulls out a fancy lace-edged handkerchief to dab her eyes. As the Grand Library settles back into its peaceful, academic state beneath towering bookshelves, Ashley beams a gentle, reassuring smile at the squad. Taking in the emotional resolution, Monica steps up with fiery eyes, locking in her loyalty with a firm pledge. I won't do anything that will involve everyone. I won't do anything that brings harm to us just because of him.
The video ends here, but the story isn't over yet. Like the video if you're ready for the next part.